Hello everyone in Mr. Arnold's Workplace Law class. Time for a new assignment on the human rights in Ontario. And specifically we're looking at the Ontario Human Rights Act and some of the laws that you have as a citizen of Ontario. The assignment that you need to open up today is called Human Rights in Ontario - Workshop. And within that assignment, you are to first open the workshop package entitled About Human Rights in Ontario Activity Handout. Now remember, if you don't want the activity handout to open and take away your window for Classroom, if you right-click on it and go to Open Link in New Tab, it opens it up in a tab and does not get rid of your Classroom tab. So when you open up the About Human Rights Activity handout, it looks like this. The next thing I would like you to do is print a copy of this handout for you to use. And when you click on Print, or you hit Control and the letter P, it brings up a dialog box that asks you where you would like to print this page to. If you are sitting in room 2051, once the dialog box comes up, you can click on Change, and you can find our room printer by simply typing in 2051. And when you choose 2051 and choose two-sided, it will save you some paper for the handout as well. Then you click Print, and you have yourself the entire activity handout. So let's learn a bit about human rights in Ontario. In 1962, the Ontario Human Rights Code has applied to everyone in Ontario. It was the very first legislation in Canada that was aimed to prevent discrimination and harassment. There are 15 what are called enumerated grounds. That's enumerated grounds of discrimination under the code. And we are going to learn a bit more about that today as well. You'll see that all 15 are listed here. These are the different grounds that people cannot be discriminated or harassed under. The next piece I would like to show you is that there is a typo on this handout. If you go down below the human rights legal terms, which is quite simply a fill-in-the-blank activity, and you go all the way down to the word search where it says prohibited grounds is in fact enumerated grounds. So prohibited grounds, you can cross that out, the word prohibited, and you can write in there enumerated. And if you're wondering where that is, you can find the word enumerated here. If you cannot or do not understand what the definition of these human rights legal terms are, what you are going to have to do is you are going to have to open up another document within today's announcement. That document is entitled Human Rights Law in Ontario, Terms and Concepts. And again, if you right-click and click Open in a new tab, it will open the document that you need here. You can also repeat the steps to print this document. If you go once again to the printer, which opens up a new dialog window, and from the last time, you should have room 2051 selected as the printer that this document is going to. Remember to click two-sided to save some paper. So now you have the documents you need to be successful for the first part of this activity. That is About Human Rights, the activity handout, the Human Rights Law in Ontario Terms and Concepts, and both of those you can print them, but especially This handout you will need to print so you can fill it in by hand. When you're done, you will be handing this in to Mr. Arnold. Finally, once you have gone through the handout, there is a practice area at the bottom about different enumerated human rights. And you quite simply answer yes, no, or maybe. Don't pay any attention to the lawyer will discuss the answers with the class. We do not have a lawyer coming in to visit. I will provide the answer key on the classroom page after you've finished. And finally, it's now time to practice what you know. You next need to open up the Human Rights in Ontario discussion scenarios. So again, if I right-click and click Open in a new tab, it gives me my discussion scenarios. And what you will do with the discussion scenarios is you are going to answer 2 questions about this. Each of these is based on one of the enumerated grounds on the first page of the About Human Rights handout. Those are your 15 enumerated grounds. So for each one, you will have to state whether or not it constitutes discrimination or harassment and which grounds it falls under. The link that you use to answer these questions is a form. The About Human Rights in Ontario discussion scenarios, and you should see underneath Google Forms. Now if you click on this, it should open in a new window, but just in case, again, you can right-click and click Open in a new tab. So you now have the forms, and as you can see here, each of them is entitled with the case. So Emil's landlord, is this discrimination or harassment? If you read through Emil's situation, it's in number 1. So Emil's landlord teases him about his clothing every time he walks by. This makes Emil feel ashamed and angry. Emil now uses the back door of the apartment building to avoid comments about his clothing. His clothing reflects his cultural background and religion. Is this discrimination or harassment? And is this protected by one of the areas of the code? So what we need is we need to look at what Emil's situation is. So we know that Emil's clothing reflects his cultural background and religion. So those are the key words we're looking for: culture and religion. And we know that Emil's landlord is teasing him about his clothing. So is this discrimination or harassment? That's the first piece we need to answer. So we can go to the enumerated grounds. And we can see right away that in the enumerated grounds, we have religion as one of the enumerated grounds that are supposed to prevent a person from feeling discriminated or harassed. And since he is bothering Emil, we could say that in this case, it's harassment because of his religion. So on the form, you would click yes, because we did determine that he is being harassed by his landlord. And below, you'll see that there is a drop-down menu with the 15 enumerated grounds on it. We also determined that it was because of Emil's religion. So I'm going to choose religion, and your question is answered. So now's the time for you to practice on your own. The next scenario is Lasse's teacher jokes. And again, you're going to answer yes or no to discrimination or harassment. You do not have to choose one or the other. You just need to know that it is one of the enumerated grounds. And finally, you need to choose which one from this drop-down menu. So as usual, if you have any questions whatsoever, please contact me. At the end of your discussion scenario activity, you are going to click on Submit. If you are working with someone who is at the same point as you in the lesson or in the course, I highly recommend that you work together. But you do each need to fill out a copy of this. Great. Enjoy the lesson. I hope you learned something about human rights in Ontario, and we'll talk again soon.